We will create a Kanban board from scratch on a blank canvas. We start with your regular workflow. Draw columns per workflow state, where for instance we have backlog, analyze, develop, deploy and done. We have work items in the backlog. When we start working on these items, they move through the columns or workflow states, in this case to analyze, then to develop and finally deploy and done. More items appear in the backlog. If a bug or incident appears in the system, it has priority. Therefore, we move regular work items to a lower priority and start to work on the high priority item. To prevent too much work in the system, we can use a work in progress limit. We can, for example, start with the number of developers -1, so you force them to work together to move items to the workflow as quickly as possible, using, for instance, pair programming. Items in the workflow have the highest priority and need to be resolved first. We can introduce a selected column to prioritize backlog items to be picked up. Now we can see the flow of work through the system. Only when time is available, the signaling part of Kanban, we can pick up new work. However, we should adhere to the WIP limit, so it's not possible here. We can agree on a definition of done, first for the overall work, to include the non-functional requirements or overall quality criteria, like peer review, peer test, automated test, code comments, documentation, security, etc., which are all described in the definition of done. This is still a push system. If we want to achieve a pull system, we can split each column. We can then have a doing subcolumn for the work in progress and a done state per workflow step. This done state serves as a kind of backlog for the next step, thus creating pull. We do the same with the analyze column. We can create a definition of done per workflow state, describing what is done when we finish the analyzing step. If more bugs appear, we have the risk of work overload, too many items in respect to the work in progress limits. Item J is more important than item G. We can create a separate swimming lane for the regular work and push all regular work down. This way we introduce an expedite row for urgent items, respecting all the previous mentioned steps. We call this a class of service. It's good to limit the amount of work per class of service. If we want to, we may introduce WIP limits per workflow step for the expedite row separately. We pool work through the system. Gradually we see more cards appear on the board as work items. Select the ones which have priority and so visualize the flow of work through the system.